allowing myself to accept my body as she is really did give me confidence to just start being who I am.
Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. My name is Mariana. I'm the founder of Maribel Beauty, and I'm here with the lovely Nicole. Nicole is an amazing author and speaker. She speaks about her journey with self love and feeling confident in your own skin. And thank you so much, Nicole, for sitting here and talking with me today. I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait for the Maribel Beauty community to hear about your work and hear your thoughts. And I can't wait to further talk with you and really get to know you.
Well, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this because I love the work that you are doing in the world to, remind women they can empower themselves by taking good care of themselves and making it fun, right? A lot of times when we're thinking about self work and empowering ourselves, it's very serious or it's, very emotional and it can be really fun too. So I love that.
Yeah, and I love how both of our work kind of reflects each other a little bit. It's just going back to the roots of the idea of loving yourself, and that can
Yes.
go so far. And that's such a good point. Like, it doesn't always have to be, kind of serious and emotional, which it is, but we can take it back and reclaim it and turn it to something that we all love to enjoy.
Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes like claiming those moments of joy back is part of like the whole empowerment process. Like no one gets to steal my joy, you
Hmm.
know, and or it's like it's a little bit of respite in the midst of those kind of emotional storms that we might be having. So
You wrote love notes to my body, love letters to my body, and writing your way to self love. Which, by the way, those titles in itself, like love notes to my body, that's so captivating, and that really kind of captured my eye. Just the title. So yeah, I can't wait to read the book. How did this whole thing start? Love notes to my body. How did it all start? I would love to hear your journey.
absolutely. Well, thank you for the compliments on the title. It was always like very fully formed in my head that the book would that was just the title because it started as a journaling practice where I was literally writing love notes to my body's various parts. Everything from my hair to my nose to my elbows to my heart, to just so many things that I identified as part of my body, and I was doing that as a way to change my relationship with my body because I had this awakening, and it was a pretty slow awakening, to be honest. But I just started to realize about 5 years ago how little I liked my body. And I started becoming aware of all the hateful things I was saying to my body constantly, and all the ways I was comparing my body to other people's bodies, and all of the ways that I was shaming my body. And I was horrified. I was like, wow, this can't be how this story goes for the rest of my life. Like, this is misery. And I've been doing this to myself my whole life. I just thought that this was the way that I was supposed to interact with my body because so many people, women especially around me, were constantly berating their bodies. They were constantly trying to fix their bodies and, control their bodies. And I decided that that was just not going to be my story anymore. And I thought about, well, how do you learn to love someone? And it was like, you woo someone, you might court them, you might write them love letters. And I have always been someone who processed my feelings through writing and journaling. And so I just decided that I would start this journaling practice. I would sit down a few mornings a week and write love notes to different body parts as a way to show some gratitude for the parts that I was really grateful for, and just try and start making peace with those parts that I really disliked so much.
A whole journey, like getting back the idea of like, well, how do you love someone else? You send them love notes, and taking that back, and it's like, well, I can do this to love myself as well.
What I came to realize was truly like my body was my lifelong companion. right? From my first breath to my last, like it's me in this body, and we are in a relationship. And so I was curious about, well, what if I treat my body like my best friend? What if I treat her like someone I love so much, even though I didn't at the time, but I was like, what if I did? And it was extraordinarily healing because I got really honest with myself. Love Notes is maybe a little bit of a misnomer, not for the book, the final product of the book, but the journey that I was on at the time in my private journal was a lot of times those love notes were just very honest breakdowns of what was going on and why did I feel this way about my body, and trying to make peace with that, and getting curious about, was this my thought, or I thought I had bought into because of media or because of someone saying something to me. And just letting myself be honest and feel however I felt, whether that was angry or sad or enraged even, or just shamed, giving myself those permission to have all the feelings about my body really did allow me then to move through the feelings, and how I felt about my body really did change.
I really like what you said about, well, what would happen if I treated myself the way I treated other people? Because we really do, as humans, even, we just really put ourselves last and we treat others with so much gratitude, kindness, respect. And then, sometimes it comes to us and we're not as forgiving. And, we're our own, or like, what's the saying? We're our worst critic. It's like we're our
Yeah.
worst critic. And it's like, we would be so forgiving to someone else, so why don't we do that for ourselves?
If someone, if our friend is like, oh, I'm so tired, like, oh, it's like, go take a nap. Is there something I can do to help you so you can rest? And instead, for ourselves, it's like, power through, you don't deserve a nap, or a silly thing I talk about a lot and always makes people laugh, but because it's so true, is even just the basic, like, we feel the urge to go to the restroom. And how many times do we like not go? We're like, oh, I'll go in a few minutes. I'm busy right now. Oh, it's not convenient because I'll have to, I'm out in public, or I'll have to pull the car over, or I'll have to not finish this email first. And it's such a small basic need. And it takes literally just, 2 minutes, and that's hand washing and everything. I'm like, why don't we give ourselves so much more care?
We really do put everyone first, and we're so forgiving for other people, our friends, like family, whoever it might be. And then comes to the small things like that, like even going to the washroom, honestly, even eating sometimes. Oh, I'll eat later. And then it's like the end of the day and you're like starving. But
Yeah.
if you heard your friend say that, you'd be like, oh my God, you need to take more care of yourself. But in reality, you're doing the same thing to yourself.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So the fact that you had that thought and was like, how can I treat myself the way I treat other people? Because we honestly are so selfless, like, just as humans sometimes. So that's amazing how you kind of took that back and started Love Notes to Your Body from that perspective. I was wondering, through this journal that you're writing, Love Notes to Your Body, how did you notice the way that you talk about yourself? Like at the beginning, were you more hard on yourself, and then at the end, like how did you notice the way you kind of spoke about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, it was always sort of a roller coaster ride, because from the very beginning, there were some parts that were so easy to love already. I, was really grateful for, like, my heart that just beats all day long, every day, right? Like, that's amazing. And not just my physical heart, but then my emotional heart. Or all of like my sensory organs, like my eyes and my ears and my fingertips, all that let me experience the world. Like, it was really easy for me to be grateful for those things. And those notes were very easy to write and even fun to write at times. And I could just be grateful and say, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me these experiences. But then there were other parts, like I would call them like the parts I was side eyeing, because I was like, I know that there's a lot to work out with my belly. And I know there's a lot to work out with my knees. And these other parts. And for sometimes I would sit down and like say my belly would really be on my mind, but I just was like, I can't write to you today. And that would then be my love note. Dear belly, I know we need to talk and I just can't talk to you today. I'm not ready. And so it was a gradual process, but it was always, I gave myself compassion and I was very permission giving about it. And so finally, it was like, okay, I'm ready to talk to you. Let's look at what's going on. And like, so there were multiple notes that I would write to those parts that were so much harder for me to love for the various reasons, whether they didn't, like my knees didn't work the way that I wanted them to work. My belly didn't look the way I thought it was supposed to look. And so once I just then finally opened the door to what's going on, how do I honestly feel about this part? Like I said, then I was able to bring in the curiosity behind it and dive deeper into, well, what are the stories I've been telling myself? And are those factual things or not? Right? And where did they come from? And, at the end of the day, really getting to a place of acceptance, because I decided, my body has always been very curvy and soft. And I'm not willing to do the things that would give me a sleek, taut, flat stomach. I never had one, even when I was at, the ideal idea of being fit. When I was at my fittest and thinnest, I still didn't have a flat belly. Like that's just not how my body is built. And so I was like, well, I could restrict my eating and I could do lots of tummy crunching exercises and I could wear Spanx all of the time and I could, or I could get a tummy tuck, right? Like I was like, okay, these are my options, or I can just to decide to let her be, and that's the option that I ended up going with. But that was even very permissive. Just knowing like, okay, I have options. I get to decide where I'm going to go. And once I decided, all right, I don't want to constantly restrict the food I'm eating. I don't want to do that many crunches because they've never worked for me quite in the way that I wanted them to. Like Spanx are so uncomfortable. I don't want to walk around wearing them all the time. And then surgeries, I have had like 7 surgeries in my life. And I was like, I'm not electing to have one. I've had enough surgery to last my whole life. That's not going to be my choice. So I have to make peace and accept this belly. And once I got to that place, then I was able to start thinking about, well, are there any things about my belly that I am grateful for, that I do like? And I was like, well, of course, I am a mom and I got to carry 2, fantastic children. And my belly did that for me. And every day, takes the food I eat and does the food chemistry magic with it. Right. And so I have all these nutrients. So it was a progressive journey of, I really don't like you, to, wow, I actually have a lot that I'm thankful for about you, and just letting that story unfold.
So you really gave yourself permission kind of to, like, even if you did have like some not so positive thoughts, you're like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Let it be.
Yeah. Well, because it's not helpful to shame ourselves for shaming ourselves.
Right.
A lot of times when we are in this world of body positivity, like, I think people get the idea, and some people are pushing the idea that we all have to end up loving our bodies. And we just don't. I mean, in my utopian world, every woman is so satisfied with her body, however her body is, and she doesn't feel a need to change it unless she is actively wanting to change it for herself for a reason. But that's not the world we live in. And so ideally, I just want women to make peace with their bodies. And making peace doesn't mean that you ever have to like your body, right? There's a whole continuum of from body hate to body love. Like there's body neutrality, which is just sort of square in the middle. Like I have a human body and it's how I have this human experience. And so you don't have to love it. You don't have to like it. If you get to those places, that's phenomenal. And I am always cheering you on. But when we feel like we have to get to that place of love and we're struggling or feeling resistance, then we start shaming ourselves, which just compounds the shame we already feel. So
As long as you come to peace with your body, that's truly all that matters at the end of the day, because it's you. It's not like anyone else in your shoes. Like, it's all you. And it kind of reminds me about beauty standards around the world. Like, often, like, especially as women, we kind of fit our, or try to aim for the whatever trendy beauty standard is today, which changes every single, hour. But
yeah.
but like, it just reminds me of like how different the beauty standards are around the world. Like how in Asia it's more kind of skinny body type, but some African countries it's more curvy, more plump body type, because that shows the woman is, gonna have more kids or whatever. It's something to do with that. Beauty standards are so different everywhere. So who gets to say what's beautiful or not? Like, everything is one man's word. So as long as you, and like in your words, come to peace, find peace within your own body, that's all that matters. How has writing love notes to my body, how has that impacted you? Have you always been this confident?
No, definitely not. And I mean, and I think people looking from the outside who I wasn't really close, people, acquaintances and friends that I wasn't as close to were often, when I started telling my stories, were very surprised. And they're like, oh, but you always appeared to be confident. But that was the thing. It was part of some of the wounds that I was carrying around, especially around my body, were that I needed to be perfect. I needed to fit into that very, I live in the US, so that very westernized, narrow, made up beauty ideal, right? That you need to be slender and you need to be perfect and you need to make it all look effortless. And so I would kind of put this veneer on, but I wasn't, like, inside I wasn't. And I was constantly stressed and I would feel dissatisfied. So allowing myself to accept my body as she is really did give me confidence to just start being who I am, who I was meant to be, without hiding anymore, without trying to fit my body into beauty standards. Because I love, one of the messages in the body positive world right now, especially from the Kite sisters, who are part of, I think, the Beauty Redefined is their program. Like, how you look is the least interesting thing about you. Right. And that's not to say that we can't, like, relish how we look. I love to dye my hair rainbow colors because I think that's so fun. One of my daughters, actually, both of my daughters are great with makeup, but one of them is really like an artist with it. She gets really creative and does all these like the glow up designs and things. So like those things are fun and we do them because they bring us some joy, but we aren't doing them anymore because we're trying to conform our bodies to fit, like you said, someone else's opinion.
That resonates with me so much because I've noticed these past few years, the more common or accepted beauty standard has been like really natural eye makeup, neutral colors, browns and like beiges, like all neutral kind of colors. And then it wasn't until this whole Maribel Beauty thing kind of happened, I sat back and I thought, like, do I like this because it's trendy or do I actually like it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I actually started thinking about makeup, and I actually realized I love colorful makeup and I love color so much, but I never followed that because I was like, oh, okay, like this is what's trendy right now,
Yeah.
so I'm just do it. But I mean, now I started to like branch out into actually things I like. That's like, these are interests that I truly love at heart, but I never followed them because it wasn't normal or I didn't see it around, it wasn't like the beauty standard or whatever. So
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to dye my hair purple when I was 16, but I was so terrified that I would ruin my hair or that other people would perceive me as, I don't know, wild or weird or whatever. I wouldn't do it. So I had to wait till I was 40. And I wanted, all that time, I'm like, wow. So, I mean, little things like that absolutely shifted. But then, I mean, big things too. Like, I'm so unapologetically me now. And so I'm so unafraid to just show up and set boundaries for myself. And, that carries over into my relationships with my family. It carries over into my business. It carries over into my relationship with money. Uh, so much of my life has shifted because I was able to say, this is who I am, and I'm really comfortable in this skin.
I'm kind of curious. You mentioned that you had two daughters
Mm-hmm.
that really love makeup. So, how did being a mother impact your own perspective of body positivity and your perspective with love notes to my body?
They are very much like my why. You were talking earlier about we're often selfless and, we'll do things for others we won't do for ourselves. And when I started this journey, a lot of it was for my daughters because I was like, they are swimming in the same toxicity that I am. And so they are probably going to have body image issues, but they're not going to have them because I taught them how, right? Like that is not the legacy I want to leave them. I want to show them there's another option out there. And, as a mom with so many things, like you just, it's kind of like the constant drip and you just say things over and over and over and hope a tiny bit of it is seeping in. But I do see it working sometimes. And so, they'll do something or they'll make a choice for themselves that's, really owning who they are. And I'm just like, yes, yes, because I want them to know they have choices. It's not required. They're not required to hate their bodies just because 90% of women do. There was, Brene Brown did a study, and the study is pretty old now. It's several years old now. But I'm not a betting woman, but I would say that the results would be very similar. And she interviewed hundreds of women, and like 90% of the women all said that they didn't like their bodies. Like 90%, right? But I think that's true because I don't know any woman, from like my neighbors to my family members to the, beauty influencers on Instagram and the celebrities, who either don't struggle with body image or haven't at some point in their lives. It's such a universal issue.
Right. Hearing that number, like 90% of women don't like their bodies, I don't know why, but I wasn't shocked or surprised. I was,
Right.
which is so sad to say, like, okay, that sounds about right. But
Mm-hmm.
like that's just crazy. Why are we so like accustomed to that idea? Why is that so normal to not like yourself? I don't know.
How did we get here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
I
your
mean,
opinion?
Well, so part of it is media messaging, right? We are living in a media saturated world, and like diet and beauty industries last year alone spent like $70 billion on advertising, right? And all their advertising is sending us the message that something's wrong with us and we need their product to fix it, right? Or their program or whatever it is that they're selling. So that is 100% a piece of it. But also we also do the job for the media marketing. So when we are with our girlfriends, when we are with our sisters or whoever, like we are putting so much emphasis on how we look, right? We are judging ourselves as good or bad based on whether or not we eat the cookies at the party, right? Or, oh, I had a salad today, so I'm allowed to have this cookie. And I hear someone say that, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't have a salad, so I shouldn't have the cookie, right? And we're feeding each other the same story and over and over. So it just becomes very natural. And we look at the women in our lives who are most important to us when we're little, and we see how they're treating their bodies. And in no way am I trying to shame moms and grandmothers and aunts, right? Because again, they've been living this same, they're getting the same messaging and reinforcing it with each other. But even a mother who would never tell her child that something's wrong with her body, like she might still be showing her daughter that something's wrong with her own body. And that little girl's paying attention. And my girls were a little bit older when I started this journey. So I know there are all sorts of things I subconsciously taught them and showed them, that I'm now having to be very deliberate about saying, hey, I was wrong, right? That's not the way that it has to be.
Mhm. Which is okay, I think, like I'm not a mom, but like from a daughter's perspective, like
Yeah.
it's okay. We all make mistakes, and it's like as long as you know, hey, I shouldn't have done that, then like that's okay. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And even I think women are like, well, I'm not a mom, so it's how I treat my body maybe isn't as impactful. I mean, I would argue it isn't, because you like giving yourself permission to accept your body gives everyone around you that same permission, whether you realize consciously that that's happening or not.
Yeah.
So you aren't the one then who sits there and gives yourself a hard time about eating the cookies, right? Instead, you just decide you're going to eat it or not because it's what you want or it's not what you don't. And you just move about, go have fun playing a game at the party.
Mhm.
And people see that and they're like, oh, I would like what she's having. I would like some of that acceptance.
Yeah. The way you speak about the cookie salad thing, um, that why is that so normal? But like, it kind of reminds me of how a robot would behave, reward system behavior. We're not robots. We're not, dogs. We're humans. So
Yeah. I mean, our bodies are so brilliant and are designed to literally have us function at an ideal weight for our body, which is different for everyone. If we're listening to our hunger cues and we eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're full. But because we feel this need to control our bodies so much, like we just completely ignore all those cues until we can't hear them at all. And then we get into like our weights fluctuating and we're dieting and we're doing all of these things, and then that's building all sorts of emotions and feelings and stories we're telling ourselves. And we've really gotten away from just being connected to our bodies.
speaking with you now, I think I'm just noticing all the subconscious things I used to think about my body and myself. What comes to mind is when my family, we in the summer we usually go away for like months, then we come back home, and during those months I used to almost starve myself because I would be so scared of coming back and having a noticeable weight gain. Like
Yeah.
even when I was in high school or probably younger, like elementary, be terrified of coming back to school in September and people being like, "Oh, like you gained a few." That
Yeah.
that would be so scary to me. So during those summer breaks, I literally like would not eat. I didn't know I was treating myself that way, but it's just so much subconscious acts that kind of like add up in a way. So, how do you think writing a body positive book in today's society, like how do you think that kind of impacted your work? Were you like, oh, I need to talk about, the medium more? Like did you have those things in mind while you were writing this book?
Not at the beginning. So when like I said, it was my private journaling practice, and I had zero intention of actually writing and publishing books. I actually, well, that's not true. I did have a book in mind that I wanted to write. It was not Love Notes to My Body. It wasn't about that at all. Um, but how are we helpers? How can we help, in the greater world? How can we help in communities and things like that? And I always start with, well, we help ourselves first. And integrity is a really important value to me. And like something I try and live in alignment with. And so I kept getting stuck around, well, if we help ourselves first, but I'm not helping myself. Like I don't know how to do that. And so that was also part of what I think gave me a nudge to, well, I've got to work on me first. Um, but so I was just writing it to heal. And it was only months kind of into the process when I really had begun to change my relationship with my body that I heard just this really loud whisper, this nudge that I was meant to start sharing my stories as permission giving slips to like every woman that will listen to me. Not to browbeat anyone into you must accept and love your body, but just like, as you and I were talking, you're like, oh, it made me think I did this, right? It's the curiosity. And so I just keep planting these seeds and just knowing that, like, whether I ever see the outcomes of them or not, like, this is really important work.
Honestly, just from speaking with you right now, I'm realizing so many different things that just like flew by my right by my
Yeah.
head. It's not never too late to start, this journey of self-love. And
Yeah, no. I mean, every day is a new day to do something different, right? And to try it out. And, and part of my work then, again, like, I wasn't really clear, even as I was writing the books, I was like, well, I think that I'm just meant to share this story. And I didn't know what that meant or looked like beyond I was going to publish the books. And now a year and a few months out, I'm starting to see, like, oh, like, I'm meant to really talk about this more. And I am, meant to, like, I created a class. It's a digital class, and I run the first session of it, and it was great. And I've learned lots of things about how to improve it, and I'll be running it again in the fall. But again, just to walk people through, like, here are some valuable tools if you want to start working on your own relationship with your body. So it's still very much a learning curve and process for me too.
I'm curious, how did you overcome the fears with actually publishing the book? Because like you said, you didn't intend on publishing love notes at first, but it was kind of like an inkling a little bit later on in your journey.
Yeah. I don't think I overcame the fear. I think the fear is still with me. It's much quieter today than it was, 2 years ago. But as scared as I was to have people read my stories and to know, like, kind of these innermost secrets that I was sharing, I just, almost in a way that is hard to put into words, which is why I think I'm bumbling around right now, but I just knew, like, this is what I was meant to be doing. And my discomfort was not as important as sharing this message. Like, and so I just had to keep going, whatever that looked like. And I had amazing support systems that, when I was faltering, when I was like having imposter syndrome, who am I to tell stories? Who am I to pretend that someone should read my books? Or who am I to tell people to like their bodies? I had these cheerleaders saying, no, keep going. This is important. Like, this is worth telling, and this is worth sharing. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. I definitely had like the same kind of journey with that. And I know what you mean by like the fear you don't really overcome it, I guess, but honestly, it's kind of like motivating a little bit in its own like weird way. But I just had to keep like reminding myself with Mariel Beauty. There were so many times where I was like, same thing as you, like, who am I, to come out of the nowhere and like say these things. But it's like your fear, your own discomfort it's nothing compared to the work and the impact that you will make on other people in the world, which is
Yeah.
so much more rewarding than anything else.
Do you know, I think it's a Marianne Williamson quote, but it's like, who am I to do these things? But who are you not to do these things? Like, if you're feeling called to do this work, how dare you say no? Like, what a gift. And so, I mean, so that's a driver too.
Yeah, totally. Like it's when you ask yourself, oh, why me? But it's like, why not?
Exactly. Exactly. Why not me?
Yeah.
And I mean, and I like, you were talking about the fear almost is exciting and helpful. And it is true, because when I get scared, that's when I know I'm onto something really important too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like, there's some resistance here. That probably is something to dive into a little more, and then I try and use some discernment and definitely checking in with myself, with my body. Like, is this for sharing, or was this just for me to figure out? But yeah, I think fear is a great marker sometimes for what's next.
this work that you're doing as well, it's going to impact so many people for a long time, because even your daughters, like that generation, it's going to impact them, and then they're going to bring it to their future kids, you know, if they have any, whatever. But it's going to,
Yeah.
they're going to tell it to like their friends, and it's going to last and resonate with so many people. Times like that where it's like everything is worth it, all the fear and, you know, worry and
Yeah.
ability, it's so worth it at the end of the day. Do you think that self-love is a continuous lifelong journey?
Absolutely. I do not think like there is an endpoint at the top of the mountain where it's like, I love myself. I mean, of course, there are days that I am feeling very fly and loving myself for sure. But yeah, I mean, there are also days that I look in the mirror or am in a dressing room or take an unflattering photo that I'm right back in those old shame spirals, right? What's different now is I catch them much faster. And I even give myself permission, like, okay, you can feel like that, go ahead. But then it's almost like, oh, but do I really even want to? You know what I mean? And I'm able to move through it and go, that's actually a lie. I don't, I'm not the worst person in the world to look at, or I am valuable regardless of whether or not this pair of jeans fits, right? My worth isn't ever going to be measured by a pair of jeans or whatever. So yeah, it's always a learning curve and a continuum. And here's the thing, human bodies change, right? They're gonna change in size, they're going to age, like their ability is going to shift, their health is going to shift. So there are always going to be challenges that come up and arise. And like, I just know now I have the tools to like work on it. And because I practice this gentle relationship with my body, like, I'm like, whatever shows up, I got you. I got you, girl. We're going to be all right.
Would you say you kind of going through the motions, take it day by day, and maybe you do like have a bad day or whatever, you kind of catch it and you let yourself feel all the emotions. Like you said, there's one thing to shame yourself, and then another thing to shame yourself for shaming yourself.
Yeah.
It's like this huge cycle. How do you find the strength within you to find that healthy balance of, you know what, it's okay to feel a little bit negative today in comparison to really being like, you know, tear yourself down?
I mean, it's just practice. I mean, like this practice of resilience. So sitting with uncomfortable feelings, whether that's shame or anger or grief, or, those are the ones that are coming to mind right now, but whatever, jealousy, like whatever it is, I used to just like stuff most of those feelings down, or I would like offload them. I couldn't be angry at myself or at this thing. So I would pretend to be angry at something completely different and out of my control or whatever. So it literally took practice, just learning to be with my emotions and letting them show up and sitting with the discomfort and realizing that I wasn't going to die if I stayed with them, right? That I as swamped as I felt by the grief, that I could manage it. And if I couldn't manage it myself, realizing like there are ways I could get support to manage it. Mm-hmm. Whether that, in fact, in the guided journal and on my website, there's a resource list called Helping Hand, because this is really tender work. Like I would never pretend to say like, if you're going to heal your relationship with your body, like it's all sunshine and roses, because it's not. Like it's hard. I mean, it is also joyful sometimes, but there's a lot of stuff to muck around and wade through. And so like, put some resources in place so you could have a buddy. You're like, hey, I'm doing this work with healing my relationship with my body. Like if I'm having a hard day, can I text you? Just say, hey, check in. I'm not doing so hot today. Or if you need more professional help, like finding some ways to access therapy, and I gave people various options for that, because I know that's not always, with everybody's monetary situation or insurance situation available, but you don't have to do the work by yourself either. And you also don't have to do it all at once, right? So I talked about learning to sit with those feelings, but like you don't sit with them for day after day after day if that's not what you're comfortable with. Like you can go, like I've literally had all I can stand, so I'm going to go numb out and watch Netflix now, right? Like letting yourself just tiptoe in, and again checking in with your body and being like, what do I need right now? Like, is it just to sit with this pain? Do I need to cry? Do I need to dance it out? Do I need to go throw a coconut? Or do I just need to go numb out for a little bit and let it be?
Right. Yeah. There's something so beautiful about just being by yourself and understanding and hearing your own thoughts and understanding your
Mm-hmm.
emotions. That's so what's that word when it's like underappreciated. So underappreciated, and that goes kind of unrecognized. It's just being by yourself and really enjoying your own company. Thank you so much, Nicole, for talking with me today. I honestly love your work, and you've just impacted me so much, and I'm looking forward to read your book. And thank you so much for talking with me. And
Well, let me just say thank you first. And I am cheering you on with Maribel Beauty. I think that this work is amazing. I love that it is playful and fun and a way to connect with ourselves in that way. And also that you're using it as this really powerful tool to help women empower themselves. So brava to you on that journey. So,
thank you
yeah.
so much. Where
Yeah,
can
of
you
course.
find your work?
So if you go to my website, that will land you on all of my offerings. So it's NicoleCAyers.com. And there's a link to find the books there that'll take you to your favorite retailer. There is a link to join the waitlist if you're interested in the course. You can get my blog there. You can get that resource list. So that's my home on the internet.
Awesome. I'll be sure to link everything in the description. And again, just thank you so much, Nicole. I hope we definitely stay connected after this.
Yes, me too. Thank you.